What does our culture pursue? Do we actually hold knowledge as the top priority in our journey through life? In today's episode, we take a look at this lifelong challenge that should overcome every single ounce of who we are. This is Sit Down and Listen. The word philosophy at its core is composed of two Greek roots. Philion, which is a love, phileo, a brotherly love. We see it in the city of Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. And the second root is sophos, which is knowledge, but not just any knowledge, wisdom. So what this is describing is one who has a love of wisdom. But what is this wisdom used for? Many times when we speak about wisdom, people think about the gray-haired old man that only needs to say a couple words to communicate profound truths and lessons. But the wisdom we are trying to reach here does not come from experience. Most parents won't admit this when they talk to their children, but at times all the experience they have can't help them. It hasn't prepared them for a moment that is completely new and strange. See, it's not about where we get experience, but instead, what is it we use it for? Taking a closer look at the philosophers of ancient Greece, they never claimed to have reached wisdom. No, they were pursuing wisdom. They had an intense desire and a passion to acquire the knowledge that would allow them to live better lives. It is my inclination to think that if we took more moments to think and reflect, we would acquire a better ability to squeeze more out of life. All of this leads us to the question, in the Greek, erotima. This is where we get the word erotica, meaning that the ability to ask questions and the process of thinking is closely related to love and passion for the ancient Greeks. Does that sound like anything that we do in our culture today? Do most of us enjoy complex conversations that seem to never end? Do we have the patience to wrestle with the issues that we could simply ignore and never decide to face? In this ongoing quest is where the questions that have a direct effect on us are asked. And one of these that has caused me a lot of internal conversation and frustration has been the why question. Why do we die? Why do we tell time? What is time at all? Why am I here? In order to actually start the discussion of the ancient Greek, it also needed to start with a starting point. What is known as the arche, the singular point where we break from. One of the first thinkers that tried to figure out what the starting point was named Thales. In his mind, everything around him could be traced to one thing: water. To us, it might sound silly. Actually, you might begin to think about it, but let's take a little closer look at what Thales was intending to communicate with water being the central image or point of his philosophy. Well, there are bodies of water. We're surrounded by water. Water has three states of matter, as we all know: solid, gas, and liquid. When we think about water as a fluid or a liquid, water is the ultimate flexible agent because it can take on any shape. And this can speak to us as a testimony of how our thinking should be: moldable, liberal in the sense that we are willing to accept what is right and true, open to views that attack our own. Water is even involved in the birthing process. Aristotle took a completely different approach to this, posing that there wasn't just one arche, meaning one starting singular point, but four. He called it the four causes: a material cause, an efficient cause, a formal cause, and a final cause. And only when these four aspects come together can you find the purpose. These things allow us to know what makes a thing what it is. Let's take the example of a tree. The material cause would be the bark, the biological plant itself. The efficient cause, well, the tree makes itself. And the final cause is the job of being a tree, the treeness of the tree. And that's what Aristotle was trying to hint at. Any animal that has the same aspects. For example, if we look at a shark, but the only difference between when we look at a plant or an actual living organism is that they have motion and emotion. But then when we look at humans, we take it a step further with this. See, we have what the Greeks called a psyche, meaning that we have a mind and a soul. We can reason and think. So the question becomes, are we using the capacity to our fullest extent? In our lives, how often do we engage reason and our minds into the equations of our problems? Do we participate in this enough? Do the people that surround yourself encourage you? Do they even expect you to take this approach at all? The point has already been made that we do not think as we ought to think, but where do we start in the first place? What's your starting point? And that's what I want to get you to think at today. What's your starting point? Where do you lift off at? What's the first foundational thing when you make a decision? What do you go to first? But you could be asking, why think? Why should I worry about these subjects and issues that many times lead us nowhere? A French philosopher by the name of Jean-Jacques Rousseau posed this concept of a social contract or an agreement between large groups of people. He delivered the point that as a society, we have developed the constant struggle to physically survive and withstand violent attacks from other groups of humans or even other physical threats has greatly diminished, largely because we have established governments and laws that protect our individual rights and freedoms. Agreement to these terms has entered us into what he called the social contract. He also makes this point. So we've lost physical freedom because why? We can't kill whoever we want to kill. We can't steal whatever we want. We can't take whatever we want without paying the consequences of the written law. But Rousseau makes the point that we have lost these physical freedoms but have gained mental freedom. We have the ability to put all of our energy and resources towards the process of developing thoughts. But in the 21st century, we have decided to rest on the achievements of others, of past societies, of past generations, of past thinkers, instead of taking advantage of the social contract. So why think? Well, because we simply can. But what is the ultimate source of knowledge? Many thinkers followed this string of thought throughout. Many, like Plato, desperately wanted it, but so many like him couldn't quite reach it. The Apostle Paul, a man with a philosophical mind but a slave at heart, said this in his letter to the Colossians, that their hearts may be encouraged, being knit together in love to reach all the riches of full assurance of understanding and the knowledge of God's mystery, which is Christ, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. Colossians chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. The epitome of all wisdom and knowledge isn't found in an immortal man. It is my conviction and sole goal to reach out for the essence of everything that we've discussed, and that is Christ. He has all treasures of wisdom and knowledge.